If you're not one of the 5 people who regularly watch this channel and you're just now showing up for the first time, you can probably put 2 and 2 together from the channel name and realize that this is a place dedicated to talking about heavy metal and Star Wars. This is an idea I've wanted to do for a little while. I want to take every main character from the original trilogy and recast them with rock and roll vocalists. Let's get started. Any good Star Wars recast list should always start with Darth Vader. And who better to take on the role of this Dark Lord than the Prince of Darkness himself, Ozzy Osbourne. Now for anyone, tapping into the voice talents of James Earl Jones is no simple task, I'm sure. But that's the great thing about potentially casting Ozzy, because he could also lend his voice for the character, and I still think it would be perfect.
No, I never, but
For underneath the mask for the scene in Return of the Jedi, we could just throw Phil Anselmo underneath the helmet for a little bit. I'm just going to go ahead and add Vader onto our list here real quick. Since we're already kicking off the list with Dark Lords, let's go ahead and get Palpatine casted. Now, it's no secret that over the last 4 decades, Dave Mustaine has voiced some serious hard feelings towards the member of Metallica for kicking him out shortly after their band's formation. You've got your serious Sith hatred right there. And you got to think about what Dave turned around and did. Dave, he kind of started up his own empire against Metallica, that being Megadeth, and did it as kind of a middle finger to Metallica. And if that's not a Palpatine thing to do, then I don't know what is. Palpatine also has a lot of credit due to his menacing voice, same as Vader, but I don't think Dave would have too much of a problem with that.
What do you mean I don't support your system?
Darth Dave will get a nice spot there right next to Vader. Our next casting choice is probably the most important one, Luke Skywalker. He is our protagonist in this first trilogy, so obviously his casting needs to be flawless. You of course need someone who can be that kind of, whiny, angsty teen there in the beginning, and then transform into a more stoic and wise character. Tom York immediately comes to mind when discussing Luke's story for me. We see Tom begin his journey as a musician with Radiohead in the early 90s, and he really is that angsty, moody, kind of teenager type figure there in the beginning, fronting songs like Creep and Thinking About You. But over the course of 15 years, we see him grow as a person and as a songwriter, and we can see that more kind of mature and settled character on albums later on, like in Rainbows. I think Tom is our guy for Luke. I'm going to go ahead and add him on there. Now, nobody, in my opinion, would ever be able to do as good of a job for the character of Princess Leia than the late, great Carrie Fisher. But for the sake of this list, I'll go ahead and give it to Amy Lee. Just throw some buns onto the Fallen album cover and boom, she's ready to rebel. Han Solo is another character whose shoes are a little bit hard to fill, all because of that specific charisma that Harrison Ford brought to the character. I went back and forth on casting for Han, going between Chris Cornell and Corey Taylor, Chad Kroeger, and eventually got down to thinking, hey, maybe Billy Joel could play Han Solo pretty well. But my final decision, I think, would be Eddie Vedder. And now, if you got Prime, 10, Pearl Jam, I kind of think that Eddie Vedder would have potential to be perfect casting for this character. With Chewbacca, any actor, of course, is going to have to spend, loads of time dealing with makeup and prosthetics and hair. And to me, Zakk Wylde looks like he's already kind of almost there. So I think that we'll just go ahead and give that role to him. C-3PO and R2-D2 are also insanely important characters that casting needs to be just right. I think 2 of the boys from Liverpool are the best choices for our famous droid duo. We'll do John and Ringo. No, Paul and Ringo. No, John and Ringo sounds better, I think. Now for this next character, we need someone old and frail looking and just kind of looks like they're on the verge of death, but still somehow really good at what they do. Did I just explain Yoda or did I just explain Mick Jagger? But yeah, Mick Jagger as Yoda would be pretty cool. Although the other way around, I don't think that Yoda singing for the Stones would work all that well. Obi-Wan Kenobi is another character I thought on for a little while before I made a definitive decision. While I think someone like Alice Cooper could play the wise old mentor pretty well, I also can't help but think that Bruce Dickinson could kind of take on that wise, at peace kind of character that the older version of Obi-Wan kind of portrays. So I think I'm going to go ahead and lock in my answer at Bruce. Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, which also means that two of the founding fathers of metal would be going head to head as sworn enemies and clashing it out. And that's pretty freaking metal. For Boba Fett, I think that Brian Johnson from AC/DC could play that role really well, because then in that case, Brian Johnson would be just how I like him best. Face covered up and barely speaking. I'll go ahead and throw Boba Brian on there. For this one, Lando Calrissian, hear me out, Snoop Dogg. Imagine Han and Leia pulling up to Bespin, and instead of Cloud City being this, beautiful, elegant, futuristic type city, they just pull up into like the nicest weed shop in the galaxy.
Man, shut the fuck up.
Puts a whole new meaning to Cloud City, am I right?
It's the motherfucking Eagle Double G. Snoop Dogg.
This is another one I tiptoed on for a little while. Would Lizzo be off limits to play Jabba the Hutt since she was already in The Mandalorian? Nah, I guess I'll skip that one so nobody's feelings get hurt. But we do have Jabba's little buddy that sits on him, Salacious Crumb, and he needs to be played by someone real slimy, real dirty, and just super untrustworthy. So I'll go ahead and leave Kurt Cobain on there. Guys, thanks for clicking on another video. I hope you enjoyed this one. This was a very fun list to put together. If you like this kind of content, like and subscribe, and make sure you leave a comment telling me which part of the video you thought was the best. Tell me which casting choice you think could be perfect for a new age rock and roll version of Star Wars. I've been the Metalhead Jedi. Thanks, guys.